Those who watched today's session live would have noticed an empty chamber, and that's because today's meeting was scheduled to have taken place last week on the day of the treaty announcement. It was moved to accommodate Gibraltar's petition. Addresses to the UN reflect developments on the rock, and the Chief Minister's today was no different. However, the main message remains unchanged.
We will continue our work to ensure that our nation is removed from the list of non-self-governing territories in keeping only with one principle, the principle of the self-determination of peoples. We will never surrender that. We will never give that up. We will be here to insist always on that right.
One new development was the International Court of Justice's opinion on Chagos, which the Chief Minister said he took great comfort from.
The court in that matter held that the right to territorial integrity of a non-self-governing territory is a natural consequence of the right to self-determination. The whole of our territory, isthmus and waters included, must remain intact during the decolonisation process. Any attempt to interfere with our territorial integrity is expressly prohibited under paragraph 6 of Resolution 1514. So forget the irrelevant references you have heard year after year, and will no doubt hear this year again, to resolutions of the General Assembly from the 1960s that Spain says support its territorial claim to our homeland.
And the Chief Minister pointed out the resolutions Spain was referring to originate from claims to Gibraltar at a time when Spain was not a democracy. It was General Franco's dictatorship, he said, that first decided to use the committee as a forum for prosecuting its claims to the rock.
That awful dictator died half a century ago. The representatives of today's modern and progressive Spain should reflect with embarrassment on their reliance on a dictator's legacy here. I celebrate the excellent approach of the current Spanish government to the recognition of Franco as a brutal dictator. I am nonetheless saddened by their continued dependence here on the useless resolutions he sought.
Fabian Picardo asked the committee to stop doing nothing and take action now. The other new development the Chief Minister was able to report on was the treaty agreement announced in Brussels.
Let us also try to see progress on our delisting. Under the new arrangements with the EU, I can see a new and more positive relationship between us and Spain, leaving aside and untouched the issue of sovereignty. We believe we can see a new partnership for prosperity for our people.
Spain began by talking of the model of peaceful coexistence the new agreement could bring for Gibraltar and the neighbouring Campo area. The representative said it would also correct the imbalances created by the colonial situation for the prosperity of the region. But it believes none of these solutions are a substitute for what it terms the real negotiations, a return of Gibraltar's sovereignty to Spain and delisting in line with the principle of territorial integrity. In an unusual move, the Chief Minister was allowed a right of reply. He reiterated the ruling of Chagos, that the land had to be preserved as when it was delisted. Fabian Picardo said the people of Gibraltar had different views to Spain's, and that in this modern world, the people's views were paramount.
So it was unusual, but very welcome that I had the opportunity to say something after the Spanish ambassador had spoken. It's not usual that the chair of the C24 might do that, perhaps because they always have so much more on the agenda on the day that we address. And yet this year, because the United Kingdom, Spain and Gibraltar had sought to defer the date till after we had finished the negotiations in Brussels, and today the only issue on the agenda was Gibraltar, she gave me that chance, and I of course was not going to turn her down. What you saw was the classic position put by Spain about their claim to sovereignty over Gibraltar, their claim to the isthmus and the waters being separate, but none of what you might call the more vitriolic aspects of what we've seen in the speech in the Margallo years, or indeed in some years even under the socialist administration, where they brought in issues which are untrue about money laundering, etc. None of that was there today. They set out their classic position, and then they set out their position about how they hope to see a better future under these new arrangements that we've agreed in Brussels should form the basis of the treaty that we hope to have between the United Kingdom and the European Union in relation to Gibraltar's access to the EU.
The UK does not engage officially with the Committee of 24, of which it is not a member, but with which it maintains informal dialogue.